The new engines were fitting in quite well with Sir Topham Hatt's railway. I mean, why wouldn't they? They worked hard and did everything to the best of their abilities. They proved to be so useful that they occasionally acted cocky, and their cockiness unfortunately transpired into a condescending nature. Every time they saw an older engine resting in a siding, they would call out condescending remarks. Engines don't wait in sidings, only scrap does. Are you scrap? I'd like to see them get what's coming to them, muttered Edward angrily. They were very proud, too. So proud that they would often ignore signals. I'm too important to stop. And as a result, often got into silly accidents. And each time Sir Topham Hatt came to tell them off, they would come up with a random lie. And for some reason, Sir Topham Hatt believed them, and each time he did, they would smirk to themselves. One eventful day, Thomas was getting ready to shunt the express for 98462's express. "Oh, look who it is! Look who it is!" groaned the coaches. "And just where have you been? Where have you been?" "Planning on how to get you wooden boxes to the station," retorted Thomas. Thomas gave them a rude bump and took them to the platform. As 98462 reversed pompously into the station. "Oh, hurry up, you blue puffball," 98462 sniffed. "I haven't got all day to wait around on you." This made Thomas very cross, so he went slower and slower than ever, despite 98462. At last, he pushed the coaches into his tender. "Huh, finally," sniffed 98462. "I'm ready to go." "Me too," replied Thomas, and got ready to push behind his train, as he always did to help the heavy train start. Thomas was pushing to the best of his abilities, but it wasn't enough for 98462. "I can barely feel you pushing," he sneered. "Push harder." Thomas ignored him. At last, the express was running nicely. Thomas stopped and went back. He was glad not to have to push 98462 anymore, and he went back to fetch another train. Meanwhile, on the other side of the island, trouble was brewing. 87546 waited impatiently as another engine shunted the express goods behind his tender. The express goods are a large variety of the same trucks. 87546 takes them to Vickerstown and then returns with more trucks bound for Sodor. So it's kind of like a back and forth thing. "Be careful, 87546, warned the other engine. The express goods were extra troublesome this morning, so you may need help. Ha! Snorted 87546. I'm an express engine. I'm big, I'm strong, and I'm powerful. I'll bet they only gave you trouble because you're a little tank engine. I am big and powerful and don't need any help, especially from a little tank engine like you. And 87546 puffed proudly away, unaware that the Vickerstown turntable was broken. But we'll get to that in a bit. Meanwhile, 98462 was enjoying himself enormously. He was pulling the express, and the passengers were singing his praise. Ha! I'm the greatest, he boasted. Watch me fly by. He felt so proud. At the next station, Edward was enjoying a short little rest before his next train, when 98462 smugly pulled up next to him. You know, Edward, he boasted, us tender engines really do have an image to uphold. Like, you could at least try to look your best. But a grand engine like me, of course, doesn't have to try, but you could at least try to look your best, Edward. We are, after all, both blue engines, he sneered. Suddenly, there was a guard's whistle and the sound of couplings snapping. At Vickerstown, 87546 had been too cross about having to push the train the way home that he hadn't checked to make sure the coupling was secure. And now they'd broken away. Edward heard the guard's whistle and quickly sprang into action. I've got to save the passengers. 98462's train was also due to have already passed, but he was so busy boasting to Edward that he had forgotten. Closer and closer they came to the station. Must slow them down. Edward was panting up to them with every ounce of steam he had. At last, they'd caught up with him. Steady, Edward, warned the driver. Slowly and skillfully, he began to put on the brakes. At last, Edward had done it. He had saved the station and the passengers in 98462's coaches. Moment, 87546 came flying over the hill. Don't worry, everyone! I will save you! I'm the hero! "8, 7, 5, 4, 6, scolded Edward. And exactly how was that supposed to help? Just get these tar wagons off of me, grunted 87546. 98462 got the breakdown train and helped 87546 back onto the rails. Topham Hatt spoke severely to the two engines. I shall talk to you two later at the sheds, because the third one is not here right now. Meanwhile, 98462, you've still got Puff. So, take 87546 back to the sheds with you. Eagle will take over for the express goods, and Edward will take over for your coaches. Without another word, the two engines puffed away. In the end, it was Eagle who pulled 87546's express goods, and Edward, who took 98462's express. They liked that. And they also liked how 98462 and 87546 were finally learning their lessons. I knew you were lying to me. I just needed full evidence, and now I've seen it all with my own eyes. 98462 and 87546 looked ashamed. Also, I've received several complaints from fellow workers about your treatment towards my engines. Everyone on this railway is equal. No engine is better than another. I don't care what their job is. All jobs are important here. And that goes for small jobs as well. Do I make myself clear, 98462 and 87546? Yes, sir, said the two engines. It was then that 76624 bubbled up. It's a pity they're not like me. Strong, hard-working, courageous. I warned them that having these attitudes would get them nowhere on this railway, but they didn't listen. He was about to go on, but then Sir Topham Hatt cut him off. I'm especially talking to you, 76624. You were the worst one of all. Sleeping on the job? You didn't even complete any of the tasks I assigned you to. 98462 and 87546 briefly smirked as 76624 was being told off. I am giving you one final chance, said Sir Topham Hatt severely. This is your last and final chance. Don't disappoint me, and I might end up purchasing you. Topham Hatt then spoke to Edward. You are a really useful engine, Edward. You were very brave to save the station and the passengers in 98462's coaches, but unfortunately, you are now somewhat damaged, so with a heavy heart, Sir Topham Hatt almost cried. I'm retiring you, Edward. Gull was worried. He knew how much Edward liked being the useful engine. No, sir. Please, sir, he said. Please retire me instead. I'm a tired-out express engine. Why are you retiring, Edward? I'm even older than him, too. Edward is much smaller than you, said Sir Topham Hatt, and you are the second biggest tender engine. I need all the help I can get to keep this railway running, especially since I'm taking 98462 off express duty. And 76624 is punished as well, and 87546 will be going to the works. So we need to do everything we can to keep this railway running. Do you understand? Yes, sir, said the engines, but they weren't happy. Also, I will be getting a new engine for 98462's express. He turned and walked away.